If you like this channel and what I do here, please help to support my work by checking out one of my books, available from Lulu Publishing and Amazon.com. Thank you. Hi folks, Carl James here from Electric Media Madness. A little short video today. I wanted to talk about Bill and Ted Face the Music, the third film just released. I just wanted to give you a little capsule review of the film really, so there will be spoilers ahead. But first of all, I just want to sort of put the significance of this film into context, personal context really. It was a film that I was around about 15 years old when I first saw Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, and I loved it. It was a film that was in regular rotation for me in my teens. I believe it was a year or two afterwards that I saw Bogus Journey. Again, I loved that film as well. I'm not one of those people that thinks that 2 is not as good as the first one. I think they're on equal footing. They're very, very different films. The first one obviously being much more about time travel. The second one much less about time travel and more about Bill and Ted's exploits through the afterlife and that sort of thing. But they both have their own quirks. I think that the second film is more quirky actually than the first one. It's got a lot more strangeness to it. But yeah, they're both films that I very, very much loved into my adulthood. I still regularly go back and watch them. They really are up there amongst my favourite films of all time. So I went into Bill and Ted 3, Bill and Ted Face the Music, with a bit of trepidation really, for a number of reasons. One, because of the amount of years that have gone by since the first two, and I wondered whether it would even be possible for them to recreate the magic. We know what these things are like sometimes when there are some exceptions to the rule where films have, it's been many, many years before a sequel or third part of a group of films has come along and they haven't quite captured the magic of the earlier films. I also had another area of trepidation I had with this film was, as those people who have watched my videos regularly will know, that I do have a lot of concerns, and we should all justifiably be concerned about the state of the media nowadays, because there are agendas, political agendas and things like that in the media, and this has affected the thought processes of the studios, of writers, directors, producers, even actors, the people that finance films and television in Hollywood. And this agenda has overtaken the basic idea of storytelling and entertaining people. And I very much love the fact that the things I love about the first two Bill and Ted films are that they are entertaining films, and they're great stories. They're well written. They're a bit nonsensical. You know, they put their own internal logic for the universe that they're set in. It does make sense. So yeah, I did have some concerns about part 3, and this is really where I'm going to get into spoiler territory now, because I want to say up front that I really liked this film. It was a great film. I really thoroughly enjoyed it. I didn't laugh as much at it as I did Excellent Adventure and Bogus Journey, but I thought the story was really tight. Any concerns I might have had were dispelled. There was one little tiny moment in the film that I questioned about, to do with identity politics, but it was very, as quickly as it was mentioned, I forgave it because of the... Well, we'll come to that anyway. So, spoiler alert. If you don't want to know what happens in this film, please go away now and check out a spoiler-free video on YouTube somewhere. But basically, this story is about Bill and Ted, many years down the line since the first two films, and they still haven't written their song that's going to change the world, change all of humanity and change the universe, as was promised at the end of Bogus Journey. And they are writing, they're performing songs at things like, at the beginning of the film we see them performing at Missy's and Deacon's wedding, Deacon being Ted's brother, played by, I believe it was Beck Bennett from SNL, who does a good job of it, the brief amount of time that he is in the film. Nice to see the original actress playing Missy back again. And so they're playing, they put together this wedding song, And you get the impression that every time that Bill and Ted compose a new song, that they think this is going to be the one. This is going to be the one that's going to change the world. I actually quite liked the music that they performed at the beginning of the film, but clearly, for the sake of the story, it wasn't going to be the song that was going to change the world and all that kind of thing. We meet their daughters, who, contrary to some speculation that was going on the internet and on YouTube, these were not SJW type female characters. These were not Mary Sue's. These characters were not designed with identity politics in mind. They were very much their own characters. A bit of a knockoff, really, of female versions of Bill and Ted, but that's the charm. That is the charm of these characters. They're clearly very much more intelligent than Bill and Ted are in their ability to sort of size up situations that are going around them. Certainly, their knowledge of music is second to none, you know. But what I really loved about them is there was no angst. There was It's something that I love about the first two films, actually, is this idea that there is no ego involved with these characters, Bill and Ted. They get along with everybody. They don't seem to hate the world or people in it or that kind of thing. Whatever adversity they meet in life, they just seem to just go with the flow, which is great. That's something that I'm very much a proponent of. This idea that, you know, be excellent to each other, you know, and party on, all that kind of thing. But this idea that, you know, we can all get along with each other kind of thing. And the two daughters have taken that sort of ethos into their own lives as well and move forward with that in the same way. So, cutting to the story, really, Rufus's daughter was obviously George Carlin, who played Rufus in the first two films, passed away several years back. She turns up and takes the Bill and Ted to the future, and they say that you've got 70-something minutes in which to come up with the song that's going to save the world. So they hit upon this idea of, well, we'll travel into a point in the future from where we are now, and we'll find a version of ourselves in the future who have written this song, and we'll pinch it from them and take it back, and which most people will know of that because it was in the original trailer to advertise the film. But as this goes on, it becomes more and more problematic. They realise that they haven't written the song, they can't get hold of the song, they meet more increasingly bizarre versions of themselves, and they find out that they've divorced the wives, the princesses, and the daughters aren't having anything to do with them anymore either, and life has gone pretty shitty for them. But they do eventually reach a point where they reach elderly versions of themselves, and they claim that they have the song. It's never fully established if that is the song, but it seems as though it is, on some sort of memory stick, USB type thing. But that gets broken. Well, we'll come to that in a minute. Subsequent to all of this running along, Rufus's daughter turns up because Rufus's daughter's mom, which was presumably a woman who was in a relationship with Rufus in order to have this child. She's like the leader of the council in the future, and she believes that the prophecy that Rufus believed in is not going to come to pass, and the only way to sort of save, because reality is unravelling as a result of them not having conceived this song and brought it about. So she decides that the best way to solve the problem of reality unravelling is to kill Bill and Ted. So she comes up with this robot who's called Dennis Caleb McKay or McCoy or something like that, who is one of the highlights of the film, actually. This white looking robot type thing who's an assassin type thing, travels back to kill them, and he doesn't initially, but he starts killing, he kills I think it's Ted's dad, but actually sends him to hell. Then sends the daughters to hell. But before this had happened, the daughters have actually hit upon this idea of they'll put a band together, a supergroup of musicians together from history, people like Jimi Hendrix and Louis Armstrong and etc, and take them back and use them as the band that will help support Bill and Ted to play the song when they've got it. But this doesn't. They get transported to hell by the robot, and all those musicians, the aforementioned musicians, are with the daughters in hell as well. and eventually the robot does catch up with Bill and Ted, and he doesn't want to, well, because they say that they've got the song now from on this memory stick. He can't kill them, but they realise in order to save their daughters and etc etc, they've got to go to hell, which means they've got to be shot by the robot. But the robot doesn't want to do it, so the robot goes to shoot himself, and they grab hold of the robot, and they all kind of appear in hell. So all the principal characters at that point, the robot, Bill and Ted, the daughters, the musicians, they're all in hell. And they come to the conclusion that the only way to get out of hell is to find Death, who, from the character from the previous film, Bogus Journey, brilliantly by William Sadler in that film, and he was a real highlight of that film for me. And even though he's quite late entering this film, probably in the last half an hour, he's very much an asset of this film. He really sort of puts the cherry on the cake of this film. He's brilliant as always, the acting's great, and he gets some of the best lines in the film. We find out that he was booted from, because we found out at the end of Bogus Journey that he was in the band Wild Stallions, and he got booted from the band because he was playing these like 40-minute long bass solos, and to which Death replies, "I was in the groove." So he's like, really, and we find we find about some of the songs that he wrote in his solo career. One of them was called "Boogie Down with Dr. D," which I just thought was great, you know. So anyway, they apologise to Death for all that's been before, and they make up, and then Death decides to sort of help them go back, and he does, and we have this great sequence where he's like, let's rock, you know, and they're in this the SWAT van that came with Bill's dad into hell when he was transported there, and they all pile into the van, and Death uses it to transport them back to the real world. And when they arrive back, the whole of reality is unravelling, and the sky is opening up, and there's like this Saturn planet, a bit of Saturn symbolism going on there, which is interesting for people into alternative knowledge and all that kind of thing. But anyway, so it's all happening, and they hook up all these instruments and everything. The daughters get it all sorted out, and Bill and Ted realise that the key to all of this is the daughters. This was the moment where I did have a slight bit of hesitation, and Bill and Ted says, "We are your band," meaning that the key to all of this is the two daughters. I kind of wish in a way that they'd have just said, "We're all the band," you know, rather than putting the emphasis on them. But it is true to say that they've got far more technical knowledge and more musical knowledge, so therefore it would make sense that they were the ones to sort of instigate this final performance with the song and all that. I don't have an issue with it because, you know, the daughters, they're great. They're great characters. They're really likeable. You know, they had some really funny stuff in the film. I really enjoyed watching them. So, you know, when characters are like that and they're not annoying and they're not preaching to you and all this kind of thing, and they are just the characters that they're written, and they serve the story. Not to mention the fact that they've also got a great relationship with their dads, which is something that is rarely portrayed in Hollywood. They really do love their dads, because they call them dads. They don't call them dad, they call them Bill and Ted dads. And they love their moms as well, and they love them and all that kind of thing. So there's a real sense of family is a good thing, you know, people coming together and working together and all this kind of thing, which is, you know, a message that is rarely seen nowadays in the media, and it's a message that I fully a proponent of in whatever form the media takes. And also this positive idea that, you know, you can have good fathers and you can have good mothers and parents and great children as well, and those kind of things. So that was a real positive thing, and I really appreciated that, because it's something that we don't see very often. So they come together and they play the song. Running subsequently to this, Bill and Ted then head off through time and through space and all the rest of it, and they basically give musical instruments to everybody in history and the world, so that they can all play the song at the same time. And then Bill and Ted pop back, and the moment of truth when the time runs out, when they join in and start playing on the guitars, and everything rights itself, and the planets line up in the sky, and there's like universal harmony and all this kind of thing, and the prophecy is fulfilled, and that's it. They've saved the world. They've faced the music and they've saved the world. And we get this nice little bit of narration over the end with, I can't remember which one it was, one of the daughters, whether one said a bit of the line and the other one said the other, I can't remember, but they say, "It wasn't the song, It was everybody playing it together, and that is a really, really positive message, and I truly, truly appreciated that. So what I didn't really get in the way of laughs. There were some stuff that I really laughed at. I loved the way the daughters were joining in and rocking down with the dads when they were playing the song at the wedding at the beginning. And I thought they were great. You know, it really endeared me to those characters right from the get-go, which is something really, really good. So that really is, just jabbering through it, that really is, in a nutshell, that is the story. Like I say, not quite so belly laughy as the other two, but what it lacks in that respect, it certainly makes up for in heart, character, story. You know, these stories with the Bill and Ted films are nonsensical, really, but they certainly do seem to work within their own little universe, within this sort of universe of trilogy of films. And that's another thing that works as well. It works great as an end to, if you want to call them a trilogy of 3 films. It works really, really well. There are references back to things from 1 and 2. Nice little cameo of a holographic George Carlin Rufus in the original phone booth, which they subsequently take to travel through time. Yeah, one other little thing as well, if you are watching it, please hang in at the end of the credits. The credits do go on. There is a little post-credit scene with the elderly versions of Bill and Ted as they're lying in their beds dying, suddenly jumping out and getting guitars out and rocking down a bit at the end of the film, which was a great little post-credit, nice little finishing touch to the film. But there's a testament here to the fact that this film was very much came about as a result of the writers and the actors that got production credits on it. Most of them got paid sort of scale salary. A lot of them gave their money back in order to get this film. This was an independent film, effectively. Quite a small budget for a film of today, but you know what? It doesn't look that. It isn't that noticeable, really. To be honest, it certainly holds its own. Yeah. So overall, I wouldn't say it was absolutely incredible, amazing, one of the best films ever made, but it was a very, very good film, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. And I will, if anybody asks me what I think, that's what I will say. Usually with these films, when I'm reviewing these things, I will give you a score out of 10. So for this one, I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10. With that, I will say thank you very much for watching this little capsule review, and hopefully I will see you again in another video very, very soon. Take care!